What's going on, guys? It's Frito here for your Overwatch. We're expecting Season 3 to begin around February 7th, and a balance patch that's supposed to come before January ends, including significant nerfs to Roadhog. We already know you'll get more agency when it comes to selecting the reward you want from the cosmetics. And adding to all the things that are coming in Season 3, Jared Ness, who's the executive producer for Overwatch 2, has been tweeting out that even more huge changes are coming. Now, unfortunately, it came with the acknowledgement that some of my own favorite features and format changes will not be coming. When asked about tournament mode, map selection options, and hero draft, Jared Ness responds in saying there are enough foundational issues to address that I think features like this, if we were to do them, would come much later down the road. Gotta walk before you can run, so to speak. The biggest complaints from the community in competitive right now are related to rank updates being confusing, unintuitive, team imbalance, where you get rolled or you roll the enemy team, general matchmaking issues, etc. He says they need to get those things sorted to set the foundation for new features. Today's video sponsor is Enlisted, a new type of FPS game that uniquely couples PvP with PvE combat. Command a squad of AI soldiers and fight in massive battles with hundreds of targets led by other players. Enlisted offers multiple campaigns to play through, featuring their own unique weapons and vehicles and equipment, from the outskirts of Moscow 1941 to the heart of Berlin 1945. You can play now on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation, current gen or last gen. Enlisted is a game approachable for all kinds of players. For casuals, because of the scale of the combat, there's something for every skill level to do, but the game's also hardcore where it matters, with a small time to kill for infantry, realistic damage on the vehicles. The battles are intense, immersive, and fun. I'm a big fan of the scale of the combat, how immersed you can get into the entire battlefield. Great details on the weapon models, and when you combine that with the smoke and fire, the gameplay will suck you right in. Register to play using our link in the description and you'll get a free bonus pack. They need you on the front line, soldier. Take our link in the description and try out Enlisted today. So we should expect improvements to the rank system come Season 3 in respect to these areas, specifically the confusing ranked updates and general matchmaking issues where the teams are quite imbalanced. Because at the very least, the visuals of your rank indication and how long it takes to get updates to properly know where you're even playing at. Like, think of how many ways you don't have information you used to have. Start of the season in Overwatch 1, even if the player ranks were invisible, you at least knew the average team's SR. So if you were placing in that game, you understood what level generally that game was. They took that away. Then on top of it, you're multiple stages away from really gripping where your ranking is for yourself as well as where your teams. Like, all of this is so shockingly bad with the lack of information that they give, is it adds to frustration of not really knowing whether the matchmaker is working or not. We will have a blog post detailing the changes to ranked for Season 3 coming soon. And he says the new system has goals, but the implementation needs work and has to be adapted based on player feedback. But we aren't planning to revert to an Overwatch 1 model. But Jared does comment on a massive one that I think is pretty easy for them to change, and one that should be addressed, in my opinion, the 30% ult charge transference change. Jared says changes are coming to this in Season 3, and details will be in the patch notes, if not earlier. Retaining up to 30% of your ult on hero swap was an interesting concept to toss around in Overwatch 1, where it was really oppressive to attempt to swap ever. But at the launch of the game, to be honest, in Overwatch 2 with 5v5, the game was quite asymmetrical. So when the game was more balanced, you could kind of freely try to create a gap for you to have value somewhere. But this is sort of my issue with Blizzard's make changes for change's sake, just to shake things up, is that we weren't really having a problem of meta diversity in the early stages of the game. Sure, some characters were a lot stronger, but I kept trying to tell everyone, you can't imagine how it could get worse. I kept saying Widowmaker is waiting around the corner to be meta. Mercy is not a character that you want to be meta. They tried the 30% ult retain on the DPS class because they didn't really know what passive to give them. But now that it's been buffed to increase your reload rate after an elimination, we don't need this ult transference idea in the game, in my opinion. The devs really had, and always have, liked the idea of swapping your hero to counter the enemy. But we had a healthy amount of that earlier in the release of the game, because swapping to a hard counter is not fun for anyone. It's just rock, paper, scissors. The mechanic was somewhat interesting on DPS, in my opinion, because their ults aren't that strong anyway, and the DPS cast is so execution dependent as opposed to the tank category, which has cooldowns that rock, paper, scissors each other. And now I feel like I need to be a lot harsher when they start floating up ideas, because it was my impression that these new radical changes to the game were something they'd be willing to go in and out of week by week, not season by season. Because now it feels like a big seasonal change. We better strap in because we're going to be stuck with it for months. And from where I'm sitting, the meta that we had in season 2 is just the pinnacle of what can't be acceptable, considering they said it's their goal to not let one-shots dominate the game, and then a few changes later they do. Big yikes. Obviously, a limited amount of work can be done over a holiday break, but now we're in 2023, no excuses. And here he responds to SVB being upset that they haven't even acknowledged this as a problem to this point. Jared responds in saying, the lack of acknowledgement isn't a lack of concern, just to be clear. It's much less interesting than that. We need better ways to communicate with players about issues like this. It goes on to say, we have plans for regular weekly or bi-weekly comms that will manifest soon. Right now it's rough because you're getting one of 3 things: silence as we do work but don't say anything, tweets from devs like this that are hard to find, or long-form blogs about big topics, which may have even been too in-depth with some of these. I felt like they've gotten in the minutia with some of the blog posts, but it goes on to say there needs to be a quicker middle ground. It's not a hard problem to solve. It just took a back seat to launch and 2023 planning for a bit. Great people are working on it. In the meantime, we'll keep jumping in Twitter in between meetings to fill gaps as best as we can. He said, this is the kind of thing that we could have or should have talked about as soon as we started thinking about changes. Yes, I agree. That goes a long way for me specifically, because I want to know that you're fluidly changing your mind as new information comes in. When asked about developer updates, he says, I hope something like that comes back. It's been discussed. Videos take time to script, film, and edit though. I'm guessing that if we do them, they'll be less frequent than written updates. While all this is appreciated, I'm just straight up not accepting the line, we need to find better ways to communicate. Not only have they said that numerous times, it didn't make sense the first time they said it. No, dude, we're talking about video games on the internet in the age of social media. Nobody's asking for a dissertation on every single subject, just to be kept abreast of obvious things that should be discussed and mentioned anywhere. So while yes, to some degree, they want to make it more official so more of the community comes along, as opposed to needing to dig through the executive producer's tweets and watching a video like the one you're watching right now so that you are informed, but lots of other people don't know what's coming in season 3. Let's not let the perfect be the enemy of the good on this. Many on Twitter in this thread were asking why they don't do something like This Week at Bungie, which is a weekly blog article that gets written about what they're working on. His response was, this type of thing takes time. And again, they want everything to be official and polished up as much as possible, but I just feel like at least we shouldn't be completely clueless on where your head's at. A lot of players have said that this season 2 has felt just like Overwatch 1 did for all the wrong reasons, because you get stuck in an oppressive meta and we're all unsure what direction they're going to go or how they want to change things, especially with a lot of the strategies they have put through, like changes to Sojourn, just changed what other meta characters were around her. We've been playing against Sojourn since launch as an oppressive meta character. Imagine that. It's been 4 months, right? So all in all, that's a pretty definitive answer on what is and isn't coming. It's pretty sad that tournament mode is quite a long ways away, but worse yet, because they don't seem to be considering even map selection or draft or heroes draft of some kind, some sort of format format change, that means we'll always be prone to a poor metagame destroying the integrity of the game at any moment. So they have to balance even faster than they have been to avoid this happening in Season 3 yet again. Last up for the news, Jacob Wolf reported that the Overwatch League teams have hired a British law firm to collectively bargain against Activision Blizzard amid growing frustrations around operation costs, lackluster viewership, and a distinct lack of a path to profitability. Some teams have spent more than $16 million in franchise fees and operation costs since buying into the league in 2017, and the league still has zero sponsors or a media rights deal after the expiration of its deal with YouTube. Keep in mind that the early release of Overwatch 2 was leaked by Richard Lewis to be largely in part to make sure that there was a sequel to be played on the next season of the Overwatch League, the one that just passed. And of course, the promises of switching to a model where we would actually get continuous content like other games. From where I'm sitting, this has always been a problem of the league being a victim of its own scale. With grassroots esports that boomers like me have witnessed grow over time in the years of gaming as it's existed, individual tournaments or TOs, tournament organizers, would have a competition and a bit of a marketplace of ideas, each one having their own style, inviting their own preferred style of teams, maybe a different game format, and largely when the developer and publisher are out of it, not controlling and making every decision, we can build up to a format and style and sort of equilibrium with the community and the viewership that does exist for that game in a healthy way, as opposed to demanding it's going to be big, building it out globally immediately with all these expectations and demands, requiring it to mature far too quickly, where we get ideas like hero pools from the developers as opposed to an actual draft like other games have, or they start to shift away from the seasonal model where you play weekly games like it's a sports league, and now there's far more bias towards tournaments, which is what it would have been in a grassroots system all along. The problem when you take too much control and responsibility is that testing out ideas becomes harder because you have to commit to that strategy for a longer term in a bigger scope, as opposed to a more open environment where they can trial and error the different formats and ideas. You get more discrete reps at figuring these things out. Like, we could have had 10 versions of a draft phase in these 7 or whatever years it's been. But no, I bring up that concern because one of the biggest things that I see from new viewers who tune into the Overwatch League this past season is, why are they all playing the same 5 characters? Because that's just not the game that the casual viewer base imagines exists. So I'm interested in what this collective bargaining is going to do, because I had already thought the teams were pressuring Blizzard to get their way. Now, is that going to get ramped up? It'll be interesting to see. Let me know your thoughts on anything we covered today in the comment section down below. If Overwatch has you frustrated, be sure to check out today's video sponsor, Enlisted, in the description. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave it a like, and don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to actually get notified when our videos come out. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.